and you are from the Grand River Film Festival.
Correct.
Okay, very good. So I'm a little bit familiar with the film festival. I've actually attended a few of them. Tell us,
Excellent.
tell us a little bit about it. Tell our listeners about it and what's going on this year.
Sure. Well, this year, like everything else, has not gone according to plan.
Yep.
We'd actually, as of recording right now, we would be in the middle of our 13th season.
Okay.
We would have started on May the 6th, and we would be going until May the 9th for
Okay.
our primary festival. This year, we were going to be based out of downtown Kitchener for the first time, but we've been a Cambridge festival since our inception.
Yep.
We had, I think, 7 feature films, plus for the first time in a number of years, a shorts program that was going to be comprised largely of local films.
Okay.
So that was all on the docket. And then, of course, the world changed a little bit.
Yeah, the wheels
And
fell off.
yeah, that's right. So we're in the planning stages now. My hope had been to postpone the festival,
Okay.
but with all of the uncertainty, because on top of everything else, we have to wait until we see what happens with movie theaters, because
Yes.
we, of course, show our films in movie theaters. So we have to wait and see what's going to happen with them. And what is unique about this situation is that the big guys like Cineplex are just as affected as the local independents like Princess in Waterloo and the Apollo in Kitchener.
Right, right. Okay. Now, is there any contingency plans in terms of it perhaps going to an online venue?
It's certainly something that we've been looking at and considering. The big guys
Yep.
certainly have all started to move their stuff online. Toronto is one that we're paying attention to, in part because the Toronto International Film Festival, which happens in September every year,
Yeah.
is where we get our films for the Cineseries program that we offer at the Galaxy at the Hespeler Mall.
I see.
So we're very much paying attention to what they choose to do, because it'll impact the number of films that are available to us for next year.
I see.
Right now, we're operating, basically, we're waiting. And we're still having conversations with our board about what to do. We think for the time being that the main week-long festival will just be on pause. What we're focused now on is what to do in the fall when the Cineseries and the CG programming would normally restart.
Okay.
And that's, again, because we don't know what's going to happen with movie theaters, that might be an opportunity for us to do some online screenings.
Yeah. I had come across a couple of articles with some of the larger international programs or film festivals sort of going that way, and some of them that haven't decided yet. So
Yeah.
that's certainly an interesting scenario for sure. I mean, these are once every 100 years, so to speak, right?
It really is. It's interesting to think that the last time that there was a major social disruption on the world stage like this, movies didn't really exist. So
Yes, that's right.
Film festivals really are dealing with this for the first time.
Yeah, totally get it. So tell me a little bit about this year's entries, like some of the films that are on the docket.
So the wonderful thing, my position with the festival is I'm chair of programming. So I'm the one who, for a whole year before the festival, I chair a committee, and we seek out and we accept films and we review them, and we come up with a list of films that we'd like to show, and then figure out which ones we can show. This year's festival was it was a pretty interesting festival. We had, of the 7 films that we were going to show, more than half were Canadian.
Great.
More than half were female directors.
Wow.
About half of them featured female protagonists.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily that we seek these things out. We like to show Canadian films,
Sure.
obviously. It's a nice consequence of the number of films that are out there, that the ones that are of the highest quality that we feel are the most important to bring into the community happen to be ones that are by what are by film standards um, a minority of filmmakers.
Right.
So it's really nice to see. What's also been wonderful to see is the increase in the number of films that are by and about Indigenous peoples.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, and there was a almost too much choice this year in terms of films. So we were going to open the festival with an Indigenous film
Hmm.
from Quebec. So it was not only going to be about an Indigenous family, but it was also going to be in French. Um, it, I don't want to give maybe too much away because
Yep. Okay.
we never got to the point. COVID kind of shut everything down before we made the grand announcement, and rather than give away the whole package, if we happen to be able to bring it back in the fall, I'd still like to have an air of mystery. But
Yep. An element of surprise.
exactly.
Yep. Okay.
But we had a wonderful film that was set and filmed in Halifax.
Okay.
That
Beautiful
was
city.
about a woman who was turning 40 and was kind of taking a second look at her life and what society's expectations of her life were,
Okay.
and how she decides to go against the grain. And it was a great piece of kind of modern feminism about, you know, women don't have to conform to what society expects of them anymore, and her coming to grips with this in Halifax.
Excellent. So, can
Yeah.
you share the title of that film with us?
That one was called oh, hold on, give me 1 second.
Oh, no problem. We can get back to it later. That's not a problem.
Sure.
So, tell me, how many people normally, like under normal circumstances, what kind of crowds does the Grand River Film Festival attract?
You know, it comes and goes, and it largely depends. And I think this is the wonderful thing about film festivals is that every film you choose speaks to an entirely different audience.
Okay.
So we one of the last films that we were able to screen for Cineseries was Parasite, which of
Mhm.
course won the Best Picture at the
Yep.
Academy Awards this year,
Yep.
and we filled two full theaters at the Galaxy, and that's spectacular.
Awesome.
For last year's May festival, we showed a film called The Public, which was directed and written by Emilio Estevez, and it was about a cold snap in Cincinnati, and homeless people who didn't want to have to go out and brave the cold taking over a public library.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, it's a great film. It's funny and it's poignant. And for that film, we packed the house. And it was an interesting mix in the crowd of people who work in the local libraries.
Mhm.
We have 4 public library systems in the region of Waterloo,
Mhm.
and they all came out that night. And a decent amount of people who work with the local homeless populations.
Great.
And there are terrific organizations in the region that are dealing with those challenges, and those people are on the front lines during this crisis too, because
Absolutely.
I don't know if people listening have noticed, but with the cities empty, it's been all the more obvious how many people are suffering from homelessness during this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite sobering. That's for sure.
Yeah. One of the challenges, though, as a head of programming, is looking at films and looking at them both from, is this an entertaining movie that a theater full of people are going to enjoy, but also, is this a movie that people are going to want to watch based on a trailer and a brief description? And sometimes you swing for the fences,
Yep.
and there are a lot of movies that if I had an infinite budget and 2 weeks I could fill a theater with movies galore. But I'm sure some of them no one would show up for.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the great thing about filmmaking, is that filmmakers will go out there and they will make the passion project that they want, and it will speak to someone. It's just, our question is, will it speak to a theaters full of people?
Yeah, I find filmmakers very interesting. I actually, my oldest son, Christian, he went to Confederation College in Thunder Bay,
Mm.
and for film. And when he left, he kind of went, with the pretense of becoming the next Spielberg.
Hmm.
But when he came home, he was a totally different person. That had nothing to do with anything anymore. It was just a total passion and love for the art. So it was
Absolutely.
totally different. And it was great. I
Yeah.
thought it was a very interesting transition.
Yeah. There was one film that we looked at and we opted not to include it in this year's festival, but it was a spectacular film called Lillian, that is a largely silent movie about a woman walking across the US. She's
Oh,
a Russian immigrant. She doesn't speak the language. She was in the country on a visa that expires, and she can't leave because she doesn't have any money. So she finds a map and figures that she can walk back to Russia through Alaska, and she's in New York. So the entire 2.5 hour film is just her walking through these little towns in the US and encountering people on the way and stealing clothes or food. And it's a terrific film that would be a very hard sell, I think, to a conventional film going audience.
yeah,
But to a movie nerd like me, it was a wonderful movie.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. Very good.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. How long you been involved with this organization?
So this is, I guess I'm going into my third year
Okay.
as chair of programming.
Okay.
I moved to the region about 3 years ago.
Where's
I
home for
had
you?
home originally is Kingston.
Okay.
Um,
Yep. Beautiful
King,
city.
exactly. Before this, I was in Sarnia,
Mhm.
so the other end of the province for a while. And while I was there, I was involved with the Sarnia Social Justice Film Festival, and that festival, we showed documentaries exclusively that were on social justice issues. And when I moved here, I wanted to get involved in whatever film community existed, and I found Griff, and it was a nice fit. I've settled in quite well. We're a entirely volunteer based festival.
Okay.
So everyone from our board of directors down to the folks that help us take money at the cash are
Mhm.
all volunteer.
Okay.
We're always in need of assistance. So anyone listening, if you want to help out,
Okay.
or if you know a teenager who needs to get their volunteer
Oh,
hours
yes, the
in,
volunteer hours. Yes. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We're always in need. You can head over to the website, and the information is there to let us know that you're available. Um, but it's interesting, and it's the stuff that people don't realize go into showing a movie is the stuff that tends to surprise people the most when I'm talking about the festival, and especially like
Yeah.
with Cineplex, if you decide that you're going to go see the new Avengers movie or what have you, most people think, oh, I go. The movie studio sends the movie to the theater, they play it. It's as simple as that. But when you're a film festival like us and you're dealing with largely independent movies, um, it's a lot harder. In terms of, you have to track down who owns the film, who's distributing the
Yeah.
film, organizing a time. Sometimes there's a cost to bring a film in. Um, so the logistics of all of that, there are great films that we would have loved to show, but it just wasn't going to be possible to get the film to us on the timeline that we needed. Those are the ones that are really heartbreaking.
I would have to think that it's funny, especially with what we're going through today. I think a lot of people are getting familiar with the term called supply chain,
Yes.
which is, what actually has to happen for products to end up on the shelf. And I'm seeing a very similar situation here. There's a lot of moving parts to putting this type of thing together.
It really is. And I didn't realize how stressful the week leading into the festival is until this year when I didn't have that. Because normally
Yep.
at this point I'd be, popping Tylenol to try and control the stress headaches. Because one
Yes.
thing that we do with most of our screenings is we have panels afterwards with community members who are dealing in the community with whatever the themes of the movies are.
Yes.
So not only do we have to organize getting the films here and making sure that they play without technical difficulties at the theater, and the theater staffs that we deal with are terrific and wonderful, and it's what they do every day. But then it's also making sure that our guest speakers are there on time and are properly prepped, and that there's microphones for everyone, and that we're not running overtime because we only have 45 minutes before our next movie, so we have to get everyone in, answer all the questions that the audience has, and then get out again.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So now tell me, with regards to the actual funding of your organization, is it simply through ticket sales of the event?
No, so ticket sales, and this is one of those things that people don't realize about movies, is that ticket sales very rarely actually pay for the movies that you're watching, and that is as true for us as it is for Cineplex and the Avengers.
Okay.
The reason that popcorn costs so much at a movie theater is because that's where a theater makes their money.
I see.
Our funding is largely through sponsorships.
Okay.
So we do get a little bit of funding through the government, through both the municipal and the provincial governments.
Okay.
But um, that's a small fraction of what it actually
Yeah.
costs to run the festival. And so we're always looking for community partners to reach out. And because we are a community festival, we're not pretending that we're Toronto or that we're Sundance or these big international festivals.
Yeah.
We are a Region of Waterloo festival, and our whole purpose is to bring these terrific films to Waterloo when they wouldn't normally arrive. To see the films that we show, you would have to drive to Toronto to see.
Yeah.
So we partner with local groups of any size, anyone who's willing to throw a couple bucks our way. We're happy to do it, and we have a variety of sponsorship levels that people can be funded at. So we have big companies who might give a substantial amount, maybe enough to cover a whole evening, and we have smaller companies who are able to chip in $100 or $200, and that's great too.
Perfect. Very good.
And again, if there are anyone listening out there who's a small business owner or a large business owner who wants to help us put the festival on year after year, get in touch with us, and I'm sure we can come up with a solution that makes everyone happy.
Okay, great. And what the website is grff.ca, right?
That's right. And from
Okay,
there, you
perfect.
can find all of our social media and all of our contact information.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, very good. Now, let me ask you a couple questions about the region. Do you live in Cambridge, or do you live in the region here?
I live in Kitchener right now.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
All right. Any favorite thing to do in the region at all?
Oh, I'm a
Besides
sucker
go to
for
the Grand River Film Festival.
That's right. Besides going to the film festival, I'm a sucker for being outside and being from Kingston originally, and then spending some time in Sarnia. I'm used to being at the edge of a lake, and so the Grand River itself is the next best thing. Now that it's well, at least it was warm for a week there, but hopefully it'll warm up again soon. I'm on my bike or I'm outside every day, and I'm riding and walking the trails. But my day job is I work with libraries, and so any excuse that I have to go down to Cambridge and spend any amount of time at the old post office is
Oh yes, okay.
time well spent.
Great building.
great building, great view. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful. Now, do you have a particular favorite restaurant that you go to in Cambridge, Kitchener, or Waterloo?
Oh golly, you know what? I don't, because we are spoiled for choice in the region.
We sure are. Yeah.
It's gratifying. It's gratifying to know that no matter where I go in the region, I'm going to have to make a hard choice about where to go for a meal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
for
also been
sure.
great to see during the crisis how much support local restaurants have been getting from the community. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
and
Very important.
and yeah, and it's nice to see that people are choosing to get takeout from a shop that's around the corner rather than go through the drive-through at McDonald's. So
Yes, yeah, for sure, absolutely. Now, if sometimes I ask this question of certain guests, and I'd like to ask you of it. If
sure.
you had a magic wand and you could change anything about the region, what would it be?
Ooh, that's interesting. And being a newcomer, see, I actually get this question a fair amount because
Oh, okay, good.
I'm on committees and I'm involved in the community, and because I'm an outsider, they'll like at the end of every conversation they'll turn to me and they're like, "Well, what would you do?" One of the first things I was involved with was an arts community think tank, because it was right after the Ontario government had brought up the idea of amalgamation again.
Okay,
And so there was
yes,
a
okay,
conversation
yeah,
about
very
amalgamation.
controversial.
Very controversial. And I had gone through it twice because I lived in Kingston when they amalgamated, and then I lived for a while in Ottawa and they had amalgamated. So
Yes.
everyone was looking at me and they're like, "Well, what do you think?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a can of worms." That's
It sure is. It sure is. Well, it's really funny, here in Cambridge. I mean, we're Galt, Preston, and Hespeler, which happened in the early '70s,
yeah.
and it's still talked about, which is kind of funny.
It is, and I can tell you that it's been 25 years since it happened in Ottawa, and Ottawa's the
Yeah,
exact same way. I said if
yeah,
the region of Waterloo got amalgamated tomorrow, people would still talk about Kitchener and Waterloo and
of
Preston
course.
and Galt and
Yeah,
Hespeler as
of course.
separate entities, and they do it till the end of days. So
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for
yeah.
sure. Excellent. Well, tell us where you told us the website. Is there an email that they can reach you at, or a phone number that they can reach you at as well?
Yeah, info@griff.ca is our
Okay.
general email. Like I said, the social media is on the website. It's Grand River Film on Facebook and Twitter, Grand River
Okay.
Film Fest on Instagram. We are please do reach out with any questions. Like I say, the main festival, which would normally be happening now, has been put on hold, but we are planning for our fall programming. What that
Good.
looks like, we don't quite know. It might not be the September to June that we usually have. It might get pushed back. We will let people know as things develop. But I think
Yeah.
we're all in this together right now. And
Absolutely.
I think that the one thing that is for sure is that when this is over with, people will be very appreciative of anything that lets them get back to a sense of community.
Yeah.
And we will be there when people can get together again, and we will be there with some terrific films.
That's awesome. Very good. Now, was there any question that I didn't ask you that I should have?
No, I think that we covered pretty much everything.
Good. Okay, perfect. Michael, you're a great guest. I appreciate it, and I look forward to the Grand River Film Festival of 2020.
All right. Thank you. This has been
All
fun.
right.
All right.
Awesome.
See ya.
We'll talk to you soon.